Buchanan?
All right, good evening. We do have a quorum, so I will open the August 1st meeting of the Wakefield Conservation Commission. We'll take roll call. Let's see, Jim,
Yeah,
Teresa,
Here.
Paul,
Here.
and I don't recall, Ken was going to be on vacation this week.
yeah, Peter's on vacation.
Yeah.
Peter Miller's.
Okay, and
Haley?
so, yeah, Haley, I don't see Haley yet. We do have a quorum though, so we will start. All right, first up is the approval of the minutes from July 11th. Any questions, comments, corrections? And if not, would somebody like to make a motion to approve the minutes for July 11th?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All right, hearing no discussion. All in favor of approving the minutes for July 11th? Jim,
Yes,
Paul,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
Haley.
Sorry, what is this? Just hold on.
Approving the minutes for July 11th. Are you in favor?
Yes,
And I also vote yes. All right, next up is DEP 313630, 9 Woodville Circle. Michael Picardi, this is a continued public hearing, notice of intent for the construction of a garage addition and new paved driveway within a buffered bank and within the riverfront. And I see John is with us.
Yes, hi, good evening. John Ogren with Hayes Engineering. Just kind of up to update. We did go out there. We had a site visit. We took a look at the existing conditions, the lawn area, kind of where the proposed addition was. Kind of looked at the fence that was along the back. I think the overall, at least discussion was over essentially the impervious area that was on the site. So if I can share my screen, we had submitted a revised plan.
Please do share. You see it.
That basically what we did was we actually reduced the size of the proposed
John,
drive.
I'm sorry. Is it possible to make that a little bigger?
Oh, sure. Is it small? Is that better?
That's great. Yes, thank
Yes.
you. Thank you.
So the proposed driveway was reduced in width down to 20 feet wide, so it's narrower, so there's less impervious there. And then there's a lot of discussion about removing a portion of the existing driveway, more specifically the area in the back, towards the back of the house. And so I looked at those areas, the impervious areas that we're adding, and took a look at the existing driveway, and this is the area that we're removing. So basically, we're proposing adding an additional 1,470 square feet of impervious area, and we're proposing to remove 1,510 square feet. So essentially, removing an additional 40 square feet of impervious area on the lot itself. I think that was pretty much the majority of the discussion, and what the commissioners said they would like to see changed. I do want to point out a couple things. Elaine and Elizabeth Wallace from our office went out and took a look at, there was some question about this area over basically to the west. It's off the property, but there was an area there where it looked like there could be some bordering vegetated wetlands. They went out and looked at it, identified the extent of that bordering vegetated wetland. That's been added to the plan, along with the buffer zone that's associated with that. The other change that came out of that site visit was Elaine wanted to note that this bank, we had labeled it as top of bank. She wanted it to, notated as top of vegetated bank. So essentially, those are the changes that we've made to the plan since the previous meeting and the site walk.
Thank you, John. Any comments or questions from the commission?
No, he did, they did exactly what we had asked to do, so.
Right.
What is the difference between top of vegetated bank and top of bank? What is the distinction in the regulations for that?
I think more she just wanted to, you could have top of bank that's non-vegetated from a regulatory standpoint and buffer zones, and it really doesn't make much of a difference, other than obviously if it's vegetated, then there's some vegetation or bordering vegetated wetlands associated with that.
Okay.
Again, it doesn't change, this entire, lot is within the riparian zone. It's within, pretty much the majority of it is within, 100 feet of the bank and 100 feet of that bordering vegetated wetland that's over to the west.
Okay.
Any other questions from the commission?
Nope.
No.
Any questions from the public? All right, would somebody like to make a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second,
Any discussion? All in favor? Haley,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yeah, you took my
Yes.
spot.
and I also vote yes. All right, we do have 5 minutes or so. If anybody does want to talk about an order of conditions or suggestions.
We were at some point going to talk about modifying the standard order of conditions. If you go ahead and order or issue one right now that includes your standard, it won't have any modifications that you guys make that we're hoping to either make today or the next time. In the event that we don't get to it tonight, could always schedule it the first thing at the next meeting, and then that way we could use it for everything you vote thereafter. But as of right now, there are no changes. So they would get that really long
Right.
standard.
I think that's an excellent idea, Rebecca, that we should put it on, that we should make sure we do that, if not tonight, but at the beginning of the next meeting, and just as you said.
I can put it on first thing for the
Yes,
next meeting.
I think it's an excellent, that way it'll, we'll have it, we'll do it right, and, everyone, including this applicant will get the benefit of a shorter one, more appropriate for a single family house.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I think that's a good idea. It's up to you guys.
It is listed under other business for tonight.
Mhm.
So I don't know if we'll get to it or not. John, does that have an impact on you if we don't get to that tonight to amend our current order of conditions?
We will, again, we will do it by the next time.
Yeah, no, I think from a timing standpoint, we need to go to the zoning board, so I don't see it as being prohibitive at all.
Okay. All right, so then we'll table your discussion on an order for this particular project and see if we can get to, discussing our amending our orders later on tonight. And if
Well,
not,
we-
again, we'll get to it for the next meeting.
I don't know, maybe I should see what you want to amend them to.
No, it's gonna be better. It's gonna be more appropriate.
There will be zero disturbance in the riverfront area. 200-foot riparian zone holds.
Maybe he brings up a good point. Maybe even if you guys do discuss and make changes to the standard, I don't think maybe you should go back to any project, even though you've closed it, so there's no more discussion, but I mean, I don't know, I suppose you could. But in all honesty, it doesn't really make that much of a difference in regard to timing, because it's just 21 days for me to get it out the door. So even if you guys issued or voted on it tonight, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'll get it written up and out the door before the next meeting. So
Okay.
the deadline is always the same, whether you vote on it here or here. I just have to have it out by here.
Right, but it does mean we
It shouldn't
have
affect
to
it that much.
resolve it by the next meeting.
I'm sorry, say again?
It does mean we have to resolve it by the next meeting. Otherwise, that's, 2 weeks from now.
Which we will.
Yeah,
Even if you don't complete it tonight, I think what I think sounds like a good idea, if you guys aren't opposed to, is I'm gonna put it on at 7 o'clock.
okay.
And let's have that be the first thing, and that way, and we can talk about it today, get a final clean copy, vote on it, 7 o'clock the next one, and that way you guys can use it from that point. If you think that's a good idea.
I will not be available for the next meeting. I think everybody else is back. But I'm not entirely sure. I guess commission members who are here, will everybody be available for the next meeting? On
No,
the 15th?
no, I will be
I
away
will
though.
be. Well,
I'm
then
here.
maybe you can send comments
Right.
to Rebecca before time, and she can.
Oh, yeah, I already have
I'll do
sent some.
that.
And again, maybe we'll get to it tonight, maybe we won't, I don't know, but just wanted to make sure we had a quorum for the next meeting on the 15th.
Jimmy, Peter will be back by the 15th, right? Do you know?
What's today, the first?
Yes.
Yeah, he's only gone for a week.
Okay, and we know that that Ken will be there, right? Because he's gonna be controlling
I don't know
The-
about Karen,
the Zoom.
Controlling
Yeah.
the Zoom, yeah.
right,
And Haley, and you'll be there next meeting, right?
right.
Correct.
All right, so quorum should not be an issue. And like I said, maybe we'll get to it tonight anyways. I know some of us have submitted comments. All right, so John, we'll see what happens later on. If not, we'll have something by, for the next meeting for you.
Sounds good.
All right. Got less than a minute left before the next topic. All right, so next up on the agenda is DEP 313589, 52 Bay State Road, Roger Cooper. It's a request for a minor modification.
Good evening, John Ogren, Hayes Engineering. Also with me is Roger Cooper, who is the homeowner and lives at 52 Bay State Road. So just a quick little background. This project was the subject of order of conditions. Notice of intent was filed. The order of conditions was issued back in January 9th of 2020, which would made it expire January 9th, 2023 this year. But because of the COVID-19 state of emergency and the permit tolling, the new date is actually April 15, 2024. So there's still a valid order on this property. None of the activities that were proposed have actually been started as of yet. So if I can share my screen, I'll just kind of show you what.
Yeah,
Well-
please go ahead and share.
So this was the approved project. And essentially what we were doing was adding some landings and some stairs, a paver walkway. And just so you know, orientate yourself, this is Bay State Road. Liberty Chevrolet is over to the right of the screen. There's a wetland over on the right property line. Proposing a landing, some stairway. We proposed a patio pavers in the back. In addition, kind of off of the breezeway, off of the back part of the existing house. And there was some additional paved walkways that was proposed on the left side of the house. So essentially that's what was approved. What we're here before the commission tonight to discuss some modifications to that and whether the commission might feel that these modifications are minor enough, not requiring us to refile. So essentially what's happening is Mr. Cooper has mobility issues in the time from 2020 till now. His mobility has deteriorated and he really needs to make use of a wheelchair. So what we're proposing is making some changes. In concept, it's essentially the same, but we will be expanding this area over on the right side of the house where the porch and the stairs are. We're expanding the paver walk some, and we're adding in a proposed a wheelchair lift to enable Mr. Cooper to get into the house from that entrance. The other changes that we're proposing is this addition off the back. Before it kind of came off the breezeway and was a little bit smaller. Again, I think Mr. Cooper can speak more to this, but I think the way it works internally and elevations, this addition works out better in terms of being able to access this area from within the house. The other changes before, this breezeway wasn't going to be extended all the way over. It's being now extended the full area. There's actually a concrete patio here now. And the last change is that there was a proposed patio in the backyard here that has been removed. So the activity, it does end up being closer to the wetlands, over where the wheelchair lift is. Again, that's just to accommodate the wheelchair lift and a set of stairs in that area. So with it, that's what we're proposing for modifications.
What's the difference there on that side, John, in terms of the distance?
The distance is basically 29 feet
Right, what was it before?
Previously it was, I think, 34,
Okay,
34 and a half. So it's about 5 feet or so
okay,
difference. Yeah, I mean, the limit of work doesn't change. You know, we had some slight disturbance for the walkway in the 25-foot to access. This is a driveway here, to be able to access this area. That hasn't changed other than, as I said, is expanded a little bit to accommodate, you know, accessing the wheelchair lift area.
and where's the 100-foot, on this? I can't,
It's actually, it's beyond the lot.
okay, the whole thing is in 100.
It's out, it's actually out here.
Okay,
It pretty much encompasses the whole lot.
so you're increasing the impervious surface on the left, but you're taking out the patio in the back. Was the back impervious, was the patio impervious?
Yeah, well, I didn't really mention this before. Previously, we were there's an existing paver patio in the back.
Oh,
That's not being removed now. That's,
okay,
I mean, some of it's, you know, obviously getting removed because of the addition. So in terms of impervious, what was approved, it was netting about 175 square feet. With these additions, with what we're proposing now, it will be an additional 140 square feet of impervious area.
so it's one set with, so what's the total of the increase in impervious area?
It would be, what's that?
140 plus 170?
300,
Right,
yeah.
right.
310.
We can do that math.
315,
Right.
315 square feet total.
And it was 170,
70.
right?
175 was approved.
So you're doubling just about, almost, not quite, the impervious surface.
Yeah, like I said, it's 140 square feet. And again, part of that is, you know, the area over here, the roof extends now out over.
Yeah.
The wheelchair lift. This addition is a little bigger than what was proposed before. And then obviously this walkway over here is slightly bigger.
The limit of work line hasn't changed at all,
No,
and you're still outside the 25-foot no disturb.
yeah,
Yes.
except for this little.
Yeah,
But that hasn't changed either.
No, that's the same. That comes into that driveway, the same as it did. I'll show you.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
this is still the same. We just expanded it in this area.
Okay.
Can you guys see my cursor? I don't know.
yes.
Yes,
yeah,
yes, we see.
Yes, it's quite helpful, actually.
I
Well,
mean, I
well,
would consider these minor modifications. I don't know if anybody.
I agree.
All right.
Yeah.
Would somebody like to make a motion to determine that these are considered minor modifications?
I'll
I'll
move
make
that.
that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Any discussion first? All in favor, Haley,
Yes.
Jimmy,
Yes,
Paul,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes,
and I also vote yes.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you, John.
we have 7 minutes.
We do. So we've got a number of other business items. Rebecca, what would you like to knock off in 7 minutes if we can?
Can we do, since John's here, what is 38 Rear Walton? It's a request for a certificate of compliance.
letter from Chris about,
Can we do that
Uh,
before the posting time, though?
It's
Yeah.
not a hearing.
Because it wasn't really posted. I put that on for you guys.
Oh, okay, never mind then. And Bob said
yeah.
it's not a hearing.
And since John is familiar with that, we could just move right ahead, keep John here all night long.
Yeah. That sounds good.
I will, just because I'm already speaking, let you know that Elaine did go out to the site and she is okay with issuing the certificate of compliance. There were also photos that were sent to you guys. You should have you had that, I sent that email on, today at 1:04, if you guys are searching for it in your emails.
Yeah, I did take a quick look at that one. You said Elaine did go out and confirm everything?
Yes,
Okay, I know we did ask for a shrub line.
yes, I think it's in the pictures.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I see it.
So you have the pictures, the letter. As-built plan, Elaine's okay. I don't know if you guys have any questions.
No, just looking at the pictures.
The pictures you sent at what time? I have John's filing.
1:04 PM.
Today at 1:04.
The pictures are attached to John's letter.
Oh, okay, sorry. Thank you. Okay, gotcha, sorry. Thank you, Paul.
Did Elaine look at the as-built compared
Yeah,
to
she
the
did.
proposed?
She takes it out with her when she
Okay.
goes.
Okay. John, there were no changes in the as-built from what was proposed?
No, they actually built what we proposed.
It's not surprised.
It's unusual. Although I don't know if you recall, we did come back to the commission. They had a
Yeah.
big footprint, and then we were at the Board of Appeals, and there was a lot of bouncing around, and we did actually reduce the footprint. But that was submitted to the commission too, and you guys had reviewed that. So
Right.
yeah, they built that same house, and they put the bushes in that they were supposed to.
Yes,
After
I see
I did
those.
have to remind them, but
They are very evident in the pictures.
Mhm.
All right. So yeah, everything looked good and Lane agreed. So anybody want to make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance? For
I'll make that
38
motion.
Walton? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Haley,
Yes.
Jimmy,
Yes,
Paul,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes,
and I also vote yes.
John, are you in contact at all with that homeowner or applicant?
yeah, I can get in touch with, yep.
Okay, because I'm going to send him the certificate of compliance, but he lives out of this county, but it has to be recorded here. So it doesn't always work that way. So just ensuring that he doesn't record it. I have a note from Elaine. I don't know if she spoke to him about it already, but she just said,
No,
tell him to record at Middlesex Registry of Deeds.
I will probably talk to him tomorrow. I will remind him. If he has a problem, we can record it for him.
I was gonna say, I'll just send it to you.
Yeah,
Let me know.
Maybe.
Let me know. I won't have it out by tomorrow anyway, so you'll know before I'm even back to the office. All right, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to tell him that he was on today.
No, it was quick. Elaine got out there so fast. I wasn't sure if we were gonna have it
Nice.
today or not. But she was able to do it, so I figured knock it off the list.
That's great. I'm checking off a lot of things tonight.
One more.
Yeah, it looks like you're gonna be up again in a moment.
Yep.
How much time do we have? I don't know much.
We don't really have any time, Rebecca. It's just about 7:30.
Mhm.
Unless Judy wants to squeeze in the table, the town table.
Sure.
Does the commission want to have a table at Town Day this year?
What's the date?
You were so enthusiastic about it last year. I think it's Columbus Day weekend, October something.
Is it the Saturday?
Indigenous Peoples' Day.
Yes, it's a Saturday.
And what time, Judy?
It's 10 to 1, 9 to 1, something like that. 10 to 2, I think that's what it is.
So I tell, that day I cannot do it, I can do it afternoon, I can't do it before then. I don't know, last year, did we do it and do people just take turns?
Jimmy and I did it. He didn't take any turn. He made me do it all.
He was there the whole time and you were too,
Yeah,
you
he
were
was
there?
there for moral support.
I was there the whole time watching her put together
You were.
little butterflies or whatever that, was
Yeah.
that?
Oh, brother, fireflies.
Did people come over?
Yeah, they love the
We
crowd.
even had, even
And
had
the
one of the
free
selectmen
candy.
come over.
And did you have merch? What did you?
Yeah, we made a craft, I had candy. One of the town councilors made a firefly. It was great.
You
Talked
did a good
about
job.
wetlands, open space.
I unfortunately have to table for another event that day, but I have plenty of kids' craft supplies that I could donate to that table.
That's nice of you. I'm also going to be at the farmer's market at the end of the month, promoting the open space plan. Luckily, I'll have one of the consultants with me.
So is anybody available for that Saturday morning?
Yeah, I'm available. Wait a minute, what's that day? I'm going somewhere.
It's indigenous, it's October.
Oh,
The 7th.
October. Yeah,
Yes.
I can do it.
So it sounds like Judy, we're on for a table.
Okay, Jimmy, you're all over it.
Yeah. I'll be
Jimmy,
hunting down.
Jimmy, practice your origami skills.
Oh,
You can build a birdhouse.
There you go. Bat
I'm
house.
gonna-
Yes.
You make bat houses.
You better go away that day, Judy, because I'll hunt you down.
I know.
All right, so that's all settled then. All right, so we're a little after here at 7:32. Next up, we have DEP 313-621 10 Broadway, New Creek LLC. This is a continued public hearing, notice of intent for the construction of a 124-unit multifamily residential building within buffer to bank. John.
Hi, John Ogren, Hayes Engineering.
Hey.
I think at the last hearing, I owed the commission, pretty much everyone, revised, basically a revised civil site plan set. I know we presented to the commission on previous meetings, basically a revised layout of the parking in the building than what was initially submitted. That's been kind of solidified with the zoning board. So we're at a point now where we went in and kind of added the details to it, the grading, we revised the utilities, that type of thing, and also addressed comments that we had from engineering. So we submitted those. We've also updated the stormwater management report that was submitted. And I also submitted the revised landscape plan. And if I can share that.
Yes, please do.
There was, I think Rebecca had a comment in regards to making sure that we're putting native species, especially in the area of the, within the buffer zone areas, because that had been something that had to go back and forth between the ZBA and your commission. So I had the landscape architect, James Emanuel, review the plants that are on the list, because it's essentially just a a list of plants to choose from, and he's highlighted in the buffer zone areas which types of trees which are native and that should only from that list should be picked for those areas in the buffer zone. So if it's a labeled 1, it's a deciduous, just those that he's identified. If it's labeled 2, those evergreens, those are native, those should only be used in those areas. And then the same with the shrubs, which are labeled 3. So I think that should clarify that, and that those are the plants, only those plants are to be planted in those areas. I can go through, I don't really know if the commission would like me to go through the revised plans. Like I said, the layout that the commission seen has not changed. Again, it's just more kind of the details, some of the engineering comments we addressed, had to deal with more details in terms of you know, utility connections, that type of thing, sidewalks out on Broadway, a little more detail that they wanted there. Probably the one thing, not that this is necessarily in kind of in the jurisdiction of the commission, they did want us to add some sort of infiltration on site. So what we did do was added out in the front some infiltration chambers to take up some of to infiltrate some of the roof runoff. We didn't necessarily need it in terms of meeting stormwater management because we've already greatly reduced the amount of imperviousness on the site by about 13,000 square feet. So we're already had a reduction and increased our groundwater recharge. I think that's about it.
John, how many chambers or what type of volume are you looking at?
The volume reduction,
Yeah,
I can, give me a second. That's peak rate. So just in terms of volume runoff, we're reducing it in the 1-year storm from about almost 18,000 cubic feet to 13,000 cubic feet. In the 2-year, it's from about 23,000 cubic feet to about 18,000 cubic feet. 10-year, 38,000 to 31,000 cubic feet. 25-year, 48,000 to about 40, and then 100 from 63,000 to 54,000 cubic feet. That's pretty significant.
yeah, it is. And the rates,
Yeah, the rates, just, you know, there's kind of 2 comparison points. One that's flowing, what's flowing kind of off the site towards the westerly, and then what's kind of contained within the site itself, because there is some drainage existing here, and it does connect to the pipe that goes under Broadway. It's just basically just catch basins, not even deep sump catch basins. Hold on.
so with that, the current condition, or that's proposed to the piped going under Broadway? That's going through what?
Well, it's both, it's still going to, this is the existing conditions.
Okay,
There's a portion that flows overland, actually ends up, eventually overtopping and going towards that ditch. There's another portion here, which is essentially the existing building, majority of the existing building, then the parking lot out front. And then there's this portion E4 that kind of heads kind of in a westerly direction. And then in the proposed, it's very similar. Basically what's flowing kind of off the site to the west. And then the remainder of it is piped and collected and connects to that pipe in under Broadway. So that's why it's basically, that's why it's broken up into two. We have two tables here,
Okay,
and one's basically to that open channel or that ditch, and then the other is overland flow to Broadway. I mean, eventually it all ends up going under Broadway.
and the treatment that is being proposed now, I did see a note about a Barracuda unit or something a little lower down. So
Yeah.
everything's getting treated now in some fashion,
Correct.
and the various methods are, everything's deep sump, all the catch basins.
Yep, deep sump catch basins, and then you're correct, it all, eventually, all the runoff from the paved surfaces gets routed through the Barracuda and then eventually discharges into the pipe under Broadway.
Okay,
So yeah, I mean, essentially what's there now, nothing is treated.
right. And the TSS removal you would be getting now and the proposed is what?
I just had it. I missed it. So the total TSS removal would be a presumptive 83%.
Okay. Do all the points of discharge end up through a single Barracuda, or are there multiple Barracudas?
No, it's a single, it's size based on essentially on the impervious area that's tributary to it and what the flows are, basically CFS.
Okay. And I don't think we've talked about snow storage, snow removal, and treatment on the site.
No, we had not discussed that.
Do you have snow storage locations designated?
I have not identified them on the plan. That's certainly something I can do.
Yeah, that would be good to have. Is there a snow management plan at all?
Management plan as far as snow.
Yeah, snow storage, snow removal. Driveway treatments. Is there any type of plan already produced for this?
Are you like specifically talking about
De-icing kind
plowing and
of.
de-icing?
Yeah, when will, snow be removed off site? Anything of that nature?
Well, a little birdie told me that you might be bringing this up, so I did prepare, I have not submitted this yet to the commission, but I did prepare snow removal and ice control practices, basically an O&M.
Okay,
It kind of goes through, I think what you're talking about in terms of areas of snow storage, where the snow, if it gets to a certain height, if it needs to be removed off site. And then it gets into basically de-icing. Kind of breaks down. I mean, really the most common and what's really being used is sodium chloride. And that's what we're proposing, but we do call out that, you know, something better comes along, they should use it. But in terms of, there are other de-icing materials out there, but from a practical standpoint, it's not, they're not very available in supply, and they tend to be fairly expensive. And I think the biggest thing is you really can't, it's hard to get it, or, you know that you're gonna get it. You know, the practice that we talk about in here is if you're gonna get lower temperatures, mixing in calcium chloride in solution to the sodium chloride. You know, and in terms of best practices, it talks about it's better to apply the salt prior to the snow so that you're not just throwing salt on top of snow. It's not as effective, those types of things. But I will get this to the commission. You can certainly review it.
Okay.
How close is the closest point of the edge of the driveway to the lake? I understand that there's a wetlands closer, but
You mean the parking lot?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, the parking lot, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this line
Okay.
here. Someday I'll figure out how to draw on this thing. This. No, not gonna happen tonight. Basically this line here is
Yes.
100 feet from
Okay,
the lake.
okay.
So it's a pretty small portion of it. And again, all this flows away from the lake.
The other
not-
way, right.
John, is there O&M plan for the Barracuda and other?
Yes, there's a
Stormwater.
O&M. It's part of the stormwater management report.
Okay,
And it also will be part of the zoning board requires an O&M plan, and we typically will submit that, the stormwater, and that gets added to the general site O&M.
okay.
So you're still before the Board of Appeal, yeah, John?
We are. But we're getting to that point where it's, you know, who comes first?
We come
The
first?
zoning board wants to know that the commission is happy, and you know, the commission wants to
We
know
want
that
to know
the
that they're
ZBA is
happy,
happy.
right?
So it would be nice. The next hearing is the 15th, is that right? 15th or 16th?
Yeah.
Yes,
It'd be nice to be able to be in a position to close it, because the ZBA meets the following night. Close it with the conservation and be able to go to the ZBA and say that you've at least closed the public hearing.
all right, so I think what we're looking for now is a snow storage / removal plan to be identified.
Yep.
Um,
I'll
Was
add
there-
that to the plan and add it to that, the winter
Yeah.
maintenance.
yes,
But, you know, well, hang on a second. So what are you doing about the sodium chloride? What standards are you gonna go by? I mean, the sodium chloride is a big deal these days, because it's soluble, and it just goes right through the system no matter what you do. You have something for us to look at concerning that?
Yeah, I'll send this out tomorrow. But it essentially will be, the icing would be the sodium chloride.
Yeah, but so you gotta keep the dosage as low as possible. So
Right.
You gotta give us some guidelines of how you're gonna do it.
We do have that in terms of loading based on the conditions. Essentially 4 pounds per 1,000 square feet of paved. If it's snow.
And where'd you get that? Where'd you get that from the
We
guidelines for the highway?
spent all these references we went through.
Okay, but
And honestly, they were all fairly similar in what we came up with. I mean, there, like I said, there's some guidelines, just in terms of applying it, instead of going down one lane and then coming back the other lane and spreading salt, you should go down the middle and spread it out. So you're making one pass, and then that's going to help distribute it. Kind of those types of things. We found, look, there was a lot of those types of suggestions that we saw.
Do you think a contractor would actually do that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
You can go watch them and
Yeah, I mean, some
At least-
will be careful and some won't. Some will
Right.
only want to use what they have to, not have to go back and, reload the truck.
yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of it is obviously you need to solve for safety. It's a matter of being effective with it, so that you're only using what you really need to do, and you're not throwing big piles of salt everywhere. Hopefully, in terms of this site, where there is a big decrease in the paved areas, that the amount of salt that's being applied to this site will be less, just because there's less pavement areas.
Can I just ask you, though, do we want John to show on the plan where the snow storage will
Yes,
be?
that's what we've asked for.
Yeah, I will add that to the plan.
Okay, sorry.
Could you go back to the drawing, John, please?
Would you want me to go back?
Back to the drawing.
Yep.
So where will they be, John?
yeah, where are you possibly gonna put snow?
Yeah, I would anticipate something in here. We can
Yeah,
put
but
it back in this area here,
I
this
know,
area.
John, but look at those little circles compared to the area you're servicing.
You're also gonna have, vehicles parked in there, in those spots too. So they won't be able to, swipe them all clean. How many
Right.
spots are under the building?
There's 76.
Okay, and how many spots outside?
Good question. It's on 83 surface park.
All right, it's 124 units.
Well, yeah, that's, we did discuss that, but we can revisit this. It was 124. It's been reduced down to 106 units. And the parking has been actually increased to 159 spaces.
Okay.
That was so that it met zoning. We certainly have some areas in here. This whole area coming in the front,
Probably all over the crushed stone.
area in the front here.
Yeah, but those don't look like areas where you can just plow it. It's like those are areas that you gotta pick it up and move it. I don't know. That's not my.
Yeah, I
problem.
mean, some you can probably get to depending on, what's parked, for vehicles.
Even to get at where some of the stuff is, you can't reach in there to get it.
Yeah, there's berms around the entire perimeter, correct? There's, curbing around all the paved areas or islands around.
That's a good question. Is the perimeter?
Yeah, there's nothing except for the driveway to the street. Everything else is contained on the property, right, John?
What do you mean contained on the property?
Yeah,
As far as it being curbing around the perimeter, curbing fences. There's islands above the elevation of the parking spots. In other words, you're not pushing directly from a parking spot across the property. There's a curb there.
Yeah, I mean, in here, obviously, if there's cars parked, they're not gonna have the ability, there is a proposed fence around the perimeter of this, correct?
Okay. All right, so
No,
yeah,
it's tight, and they're gonna, these are the areas we're gonna designate, and if they get to the point where they no longer have space, then they're gonna have to remove it off-site.
yeah,
I mean, I'm trying to, I just purposely not designating anything in this area or in here, because that would
Right.
be close to the resource area.
yeah, that makes sense.
I think that's probably, the how it ends up procedurally working out. That's something that they're gonna have to deal with, but I think, from a commission standpoint, we really want to see is that this area here is there's no snow storage there.
Correct.
And that's really, I think, the goal. I don't know, maybe they'll find they get way too many parking spaces and stored at the end here.
That would be great.
Mm,
You guys often put up or have a condition that says I have to put up a sign that says no snow storage in this area. Probably, maybe you want to include that for that section that John was just mentioning.
Good idea.
does that imply self-storage could be everywhere else though, I guess? I don't know. What's the implication of that?
Yep, that it can be anywhere else. I mean, if it's all draining to the same place, what's the difference? Right?
I just think it's.
Yeah, you're right.
If it's gonna, no matter where it is, it's gonna melt and go out into the catch basin. And otherwise, it's all gonna end up there anyway.
Yeah, there's only one driveway entrance, correct, John? Oh, no, I see two actually. There are two onto Broadway, right?
Yeah, there's two,
Entrance exits. I see it now.
this is an entrance and exit,
Yeah,
and then this one is an exit only.
okay.
And this is just meant to be kind of a, drop off visitor type area, Amazon delivery, whatever.
Okay. So that's the entrance, the front of the building right there is facing Broadway.
Correct. Yes, this is the main entrance right here.
Okay,
And traffic entering the garage, the covered area, interior spaces goes in there.
Yeah, this is the entrance into the parking garage.
Okay.
all right. Any other questions regarding 10 Broadway?
I don't think it's a good plan.
As far as what, Jim?
I just think it's so tight. I can't imagine, I mean, just picture a truck coming down the middle of this thing with cars parked on each side. Then once you get your first row, and now everyone's got to clean their cars out, or the windrow that's at the back of their, I don't know, it's just a mess.
Yeah,
It's a mess.
there'll be people certainly, trying to get to the garage parking for sure. Any late arrivals, they're in the parking lot.
And the areas that you've outlined, it don't seem like they're wide enough to really put anything in. To work it out.
I mean, I don't know, maybe as a reference, think about the snowbanks on the side of the street. How big an area is that?
What do you mean?
Well, if there's a grass plot, which is typically like 4 or 5 feet wide,
But you can
They
push
take,
that.
they take that little plow that they have that goes down the sidewalks and they push it back out into the street. That's what
In
they
some
do.
neighborhoods. If you're near a school,
Yeah.
if not, it's on your sidewalk or your front yard.
Yeah. Or they're 10 feet away from the curb, so once they finish plowing, you can't get a car down. Oh. Well, it is what it is. I think they'll be doing a lot of re-landscaping every year.
Yeah, I'm sure the plows will be lifting the blades and pushing snow up onto the landscape areas and, sometimes they don't lift them high enough and
John, when you guys talked to the ZBA, did they ask you to also identify snow storage areas?
Sometimes. Not
How
on
about
the
this
side.
time? How about this time?
Well, it's not in their bylaw or anything to, I
No,
just, okay.
we haven't quite got to that point with them. And you never know. I mean, you snow, you never know. I mean, last winter, you
Right.
probably wouldn't have mattered what you
Right.
designated. There was hardly any.
We can pray for climate change.
Please don't.
Yeah.
Coming regardless, Jimmy.
It's already here.
Well, that's why, if it ends up being a heavy winter, they're gonna have to remove it off site.
Yeah. I think they'll probably end up in these little bobcats would be the thing to do this.
End up where, Jimmy?
I think it looks to me like they would end up using a bobcat or something like that. 'Cause
Oh,
you
right.
can't get a big loader in there or a backhoe.
all right. Any
Can
other
can we go, yeah, can we go
questions on
back
this?
to the salts for a moment? And what's the risk of that getting into that smaller little water body at the top there?
If
we-
there's no snow storage in that area, it's
I
Where
think
it's evacuated.
Yeah, I think that's why the intent was to keep the snow storage out of this area so that if there is snow that melts, there's, it's basically going along landscaped areas before it would get to that water body.
and there is a fence before that.
There is, yes,
Yeah, and there's also a curb.
it's in this area.
Yep,
Just-
and there's a curb in the parking lot too, that they'd have to go up over.
So
Get to
is
the
that
fence.
true? Because they're just showing just the fence. John, is there a curb there as well as the fence?
Yeah, it's the perimeter of the driveway versus the parking spot looks like a curb right there, yeah.
Yeah, there's all the parking lot has vertical granite curving.
Okay.
Yeah, so nothing from the paved areas will get to the resource area.
Okay.
And you get a foot difference in contour in that area right before at the curb before the fence versus driveway, you're up about a foot.
Yep.
Okay. All right, anything else?
So John knows what he has to send to us.
Yes,
Yep, I'll send you my winter maintenance O&M and the designated snow storage areas.
Okay.
sounds good. All right, so we will continue to August 15th.
John, you can stay if you want.
John, I did want to ask
You
you a
want me
quick
to
question.
stay here?
I'm only kidding.
You could help us.
Before you leave, John, I just have a quick question for you, but I don't know if you guys want to officially, did you continue this?
Yes, John, we are continuing, right, to August 15th?
Yep.
Okay,
John, real quick, when we were talking the other day, I think you mentioned on, I think it was 52 Bay State about, previous orders of conditions. When I look through, I have certificates of compliances for both the previous, filings. Is
Oh, you
that
do?
I do. So maybe they don't have them recorded or whatnot, but what I can do is I can send you the copies.
Yeah, if you can do that, I'll get those recorded.
Yeah, just make sure there's, I think that, oh, if you're gonna record it, I might have to re-sign them.
Can we get them? Can you get the town clerk to stamp that they're true copies, I think?
Maybe, let me look into it. We'll work on it. I just want to let you know that as far as my records go, they're all set.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, because the client didn't have that. Didn't have those.
Okay, I'll talk, I just wanted to mention that, but why don't we talk on Thursday?
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
all right. Next up is DEP 313-624. It's 572 to 596 North Ave. Dana Lopez, Richard Nickerson, public hearing continued, notice of intent for the construction of an apartment building, parking, stormwater management, and invasive species management. Good evening, Chris.
Good evening, members. For the record, Chris Sparagus from the Engineering and Survey Office of Williams and Sparagus. Everyone can hear me okay?
Yes,
Okay, great. I'm here this evening with attorney Jesse Schomer and representing the ownership of the property, Dana Lopez. So we were last before the commission on July 11th when we presented our revised plan with some wetland flags having been moved. At that meeting, the commission asked us to see about updating our landscape plan to add one additional tree behind the dumpster on the project. The commission also asked us to make sure that we passed along our invasive species management plan, specifically for the Japanese knotweed. And we also a request was made to take an inventory of the trees that are going to be removed in the buffer zone between the 100-foot buffer zone and the limit of work. And so since then, we sent one of our crews, one of our wetland scientist crews out to the site to do an inventory of the trees. And we identified approximately 18 trees that were greater than 6 inches diameter at breast height through that zone. We passed along the actual field worksheet to Rebecca that contained a summary of the plantings. They're all deciduous trees. In contrast, or to compare that to what we're proposing to do, when I looked at the landscaping plan, we are proposing to plant as many as 30 new trees in that same zone. So that's a pretty good offset, I would say, if you're looking to increase the number of trees on the property. We did revise the landscaping plan, and if it's okay, is it okay to share my screen?
yes, please do.
Okay. Bring up our landscaping plan here. Elliot Brundage, our landscape architect. Let's see. Can you see the landscape plan?
Yes,
Okay, great. So if I were to zoom in to the parking lot area, you'll see there are 2 trees in this area where there was only one before. So that's the additional tree that we planted out behind the dumpster area. And then finally, we submitted our invasive species management plan that we've used many times in the past for various invasive species. Almost always, it's Japanese knotweed is on the list. And that, let's see, the invasive species management plan, I'll just bring that up real quick. And just stop sharing for a minute here and pull up that document. Now, the landscape, the invasive species management plan has a narrative over 2 pages here that describes how we're going to approach eradicating the Japanese knotweed, and includes several methods that are going to be incorporated. We plan to first cut the plants and then treat those cut stems with a combination of a cocktail of herbicides as recommended by experts to help kill the plant. And then after that's done, we propose to physically remove any seedlings and the rhizomes, which are basically the root system, to the best of our ability. And this harvested material really has to be bagged. And the protocol that we use is placing it in heavy black contractor bags. There are disposal sites that will receive these materials, and there are some places that will also burn the plants. So we'll figure out, when the time comes, exactly where to take them and who's willing to take them at that particular time. Now, after this treatment, and the treatment that I just described would be accomplished. We would remove any remaining seedlings and rhizome systems that we could grab. And then at the end of that first treatment season, we would then propose to plant a series of native shrubs in that management area, about 10 feet on center, at roughly a 1-to-1 ratio of the invasives removed. And so we're going to, and then we'll make sure to space them not too close to the trees that we're proposing to plant in this area. The plant list is a native shrub species plant list that includes northern arrowwood, cranberry bush, silky dogwood, high bush blueberry, red chokeberry, winterberry holly, and sweet pepper bush. The area will be sprinkled with hay or straw, cast over the area to protect the area. And then after that, it's going to be kind of a wait and see to see if any of the knotweed comes back. And that's how we propose to handle the knotweed. So that is all I have to present for new material tonight, Mr. Chairman and members. But we are all here to answer any additional questions, or if you have any questions about the materials that I just presented. Thank you.
And kind of said, in what area will that invasive species removal be? In the 100-foot? Where?
Yep. So let me stop sharing and I'll pull up the site plan real quick.
Thank you.
And I'll show you the area. It is really the area that lies between let me just zoom in here a little bit. So the area that we're talking about is the area from the wetland line to our proposed limit of work.
Okay.
So this is the area. We're going to remove it all in through here, and it's quite extensive. And then once we do those things, we'll revegetate with shrubs from that plant list.
Can I ask the herbicide you're talking about using? What is the effects of that on the drinking water? Is there research into that?
So research into that as far as the drinking water. I don't have that information with me this evening, but I think I understand where you're going with it. Is the cocktail that we're proposing, for example, is it appropriate to use this close to a tributary, if you will, or a wetland that borders on a tributary? That's a good question. So obviously we don't want to use something that that's either not allowed or could potentially be harmful. I do know that let's just think about this for a minute. I do know that there are state regulations that govern that are quote unquote the DEP's Massachusetts drinking water regulations, and it's a pretty voluminous section of regulations, much bigger than the Wetlands Protection Act regulations, and we can reach out to somebody at DEP to ask that question because I don't have an answer for you tonight.
That would be great. Can I also ask on these plans? I know we talked about this last week a little bit, but was there a version at some point that was able to keep the footprint outside of the 25-foot no disturb at all? Was there ever that attempt to be made?
We did talk last time about moving the retaining wall on the plan southwest corner back, but after discussion, it was decided that it was better off leaving that wall there and creating that area with the additional plantings, the additional tree.
Right. I'm just wondering if there's another version that they visited at some point to avoid that at all.
So our plan from the very beginning proposed activity closer than 25 feet. We did honor it along this section, and in some other sections, we tried to get to 25. After a couple of the flags moved, we were not able to do that in some of the areas that we achieved that goal. But so we do have activity within 25 feet.
I have a couple of questions. I'm sorry, Haley, are you all set?
No, go ahead, please.
I wanted to go back to the invasive species management plan. So I understand Haley asked a question about what can be applied in a zone A. I did send an email as well because I don't know that answer either. The only thing I could find is those regulations in the, the right of way herbicide use in a sensitive area, which a zone A would be, but that was under that right of way regulations, and I'm not really sure what that means. This is not my expertise by any means. But I also sent an email. So Chris, why don't you and I talk about what we hear from results? Sorry about that, and just ensure that we are both getting the same information. So I'll let you know when I hear something, and if you don't mind, let me know when you hear something. So I had a couple questions on this. Just pause for 1 sec so I can close this. My dog's barking. Okay, sorry. So one of them in your management plan, it talks about removing the rhizomes, and I'm wondering how that's going to be accomplished. Those are some pretty intense structure under the soil there with that clump of roots. It's not pretty. And I'm wondering, although that certainly would be one way of doing it, would you consider, and maybe this would also come into play when we figure out what kind of chemicals can be applied in that area, have you thought about, and would you think about maybe a better way to do this is the smothering aspect of this, but it takes longer. So I don't know if you've also read about that, because I did read a lot about knotweed, and it's nasty, and it's very, very challenging for anybody who's trying to manage it to accomplish that. And I think it would probably take a lot of effort. I love that you guys are trying to do it, and I love that the plantings that you guys selected, I think, are great options for those shrubs, not only native, but also they're attractive. And I think that that would be pleasing for the people who live there. So I think that's great. I'm just concerned that I think you said after one application of the herbicide that you would then the next year, after doing a little bit of maintenance, attempt to replant. And I'm just questioning whether or not that's too soon. I think that from what I understand, and I'm certainly not an invasive species expert, but I read a lot about it, that we might need a little bit more time before we go back in there and try to replant and have success. And then moving back to the rhizomes, if you guys are proposing to remove rhizomes, which I think is what that says, how are we going to do that, considering that it's really close to the BBW? I mean, I think we would probably have to put up some type of control mechanism right at the BBW line, because we're probably going to get really dang close. So I'd like to know a little bit more about the rhizome removal, how that'll actually be accomplished. Do you think that your folks will do that right in the beginning, because if they do the wall and do all the construction, then how are they going to get in there to do it? Sorry for all these details. It's just the more I read, the more I saw that it's quite a challenge.
Yeah,
So
it is,
on that front.
yeah, it is challenging to deal with knotweed. Typically, well, let's talk about this specific project. So it is a relatively narrow strip of land. So when we say removing the rhizomes, the idea would be to do it, with shovels, if you will, with long shovels and pickaxes to try to limit, the amount of disturbance. Getting a machine, I'd rather not get a machine that close to the wetland if we can help it. So that would be that was the idea behind removing it mechanically, is just with shovels and picks by hand, if you will.
One of the things that I read about, and one of the reasons why I thought potentially maybe a smothering would, again, takes longer, I understand, but is that because it's so hardy and it multiplies not only rhizome but by seed. But when you cut the rhizomes, it a lot of times, and I read about mechanical removal, and a lot of times splitting it all up, they inevitably leave residual in the soil and it just comes back. So I don't want it to be, we all want this to be accomplished. And I'm just wondering if perhaps there might be a different way to get this accomplished a little bit easier, where it's so close to the wetland too. I'm not really sure whether or not those traditional methods would be appropriate. Have you heard? So the smothering is like using the black plastic for, unfortunately, it takes like 5 years. So you cut it, use the plastic. But you guys, the building is going to be there for a long period of time. And so if they did that, and there's a greater possibility, and I don't even know if at that point, once it's smothered, if there's an advantage to actually adding some fill to do some plantings in that area. If we're already in that area and we're mucking around, maybe it's just beneficial to go all out and really ensure success and do something a little bit more aggressive. I don't know. I certainly haven't talked to the commission about how they feel, but as I was reading, I was thinking that maybe this is something we should explore. Chris, I don't know if you have any experience with this or more knowledge, or if there's someone we could contact to get a little bit more information. I'd love to see this be successful in eradicating knotweed. If we don't go full on, I'm concerned it would be just futile.
And Chris, have you had success in doing it this way?
Well, we have done it this way on other sites, and then it's an ongoing management program. It's a little bit easier to remove seedlings after they first start to shoot, if there are residuals, and we'd be fooling ourselves, right, to think that there won't be any, because no matter how good you are at removing these things, you're not going to be able to see everything that's happening under the ground. And because we're going to try to limit disturbance, because we're going to be so close to the wetlands, I think the key here is to just keep an eye on it and continue to maintain it, into the future. We'd like to stick with our plan. We think it makes sense, and we've had success with it in the past. Out of all the things we talked about tonight, the only concern I have is about these chemicals. I just want to, I didn't think about that, so I definitely want to get an answer for you on that. But as far as the procedure, we've done it before. We've used the chemical application before. We've removed the rhizomes, and unfortunately, you have to keep after it, and it's going to be a kind of a long-term thing. And hopefully, by the time the shrubs start to take place, the idea there is it'll hopefully push out other things if we're on maintaining the knotweed on an ongoing basis in this area.
Do you have a reference, like you said, it's successful in other places? Is there somewhere the commission could like see or speak with another commission that this has been successful, so they can understand like how long it might take, what it looks like, what some concerns would be?
I could come up with a list. It's pretty straightforward, though. I don't think it's not rocket science, right? So I think it's going to be there's going to be an honest effort made, using the using this proposal. And there'll be ongoing maintenance, but I can certainly come up with a list of other places where it's been implemented.
That would be great, because I agree, it's not rocket science, but it's Mother Nature and she's pretty tough too. So I just want to ensure that if the whole sort of mitigating effort of impacts in the buffer zone mitigated by invasive species removal, then it actually works.
Yeah, there are, just did some checking, there are some maximum acceptable concentrations for glyphosate in drinking water. I'm saying 0.28 milligrams per liter. It also says a half-life is 3 to 19 days, I believe. There is a lot of information out there on it. So it should be pretty easy, to come up with, that information.
Yeah, I think one of the possible outcomes here is that part of it gets removed from the equation.
So you wouldn't be using any herbicide at all?
It's possible that might be the outcome because of the proximity of the wetland, to the tributary.
I think that might be the safest bet.
Your fact sheet that you sent earlier on also mentioned the fact that glyphosate isn't necessarily the most effective against knotweed, and knotweed will tend to come back after application because it doesn't kill rhizomes. So.
Yeah, I'm sure that none of these are foolproof. That's why they try to combine various methods to try to get ahead of it.
Mm-hmm.
But if I think I'll do some digging, and I will reach out to some folks that we know at the drinking water program at DEP. I'm already thinking that we're probably going to cut it out of the equation, but we'll get to the bottom of it. Just to be on the safe side.
Any other questions or concerns? All right, so I guess that's the only open topic, Chris.
Okay, yeah, it's an important one. Probably, honestly, this is probably the most important topic that we've discussed during this entire project, to be honest with you. So I'll definitely get on the horn with DEP and we'll get some answers for you between now and the 15th, if you'll have us back then.
Sure, definitely. All right, we'll see you on the 15th.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, we've got a couple of minutes before our 8:30. Rebecca, you have anything quick you want to tackle?
No, but I think we can take the 8:30.
Yeah, it's just a certificate.
Yeah, it is just a certificate of compliance request. So is the applicant here for 313-559 Woburn to Wakefield line, National Grid, request for certificate of compliance?
That's me.
David, good evening.
I'm Dave Clinch from Epsilon Associates, Maynard, Massachusetts. And tonight, obviously, I represent National Grid. Appreciate you hearing me. This is a continuance from a few months ago. Back in March and April, we made the initial filing for that certificate of compliance. As you may recall, this was a near 6-year project for National Grid. Just as a reminder, the work in the jurisdictional areas was Albion Street, Salem Street at the Mill River Crossing, wetlands adjacent to National Grid substation.
Is anyone else having difficulty hearing David?
I just turned my volume up. I can
Yeah.
hear fine now.
I'll move a little closer. So we're just saying areas of jurisdiction, right? The area nearby the substation and the substation's driveway has a vernal pool and BBW habitat there. And then, of course, that MBTA right of way that extends up to Salem Street. So our last hearing, we talked about the work that had gone on over the last 5 or 6 years. Obviously, it's complete at this time from a construction perspective. Project would go into testing late this year, I expect, or early next year, based on when Eversource completes their work in Winchester, Stoneham, and Woburn. So in our last meeting, we talked about providing some additional restoration measures, specifically along that railroad right-of-way, patching up some areas of subsidence in the paved surface and along the edge, and also covering up stone, putting loam and seed to make it a more naturalized surface. So we wanted to make sure we got that done correctly. I've sent Rebecca the documents simply showing photos, which I could of course show you again this evening. I think the areas came out really pretty well. The grass has grown nicely. They're all very stable. The areas around the substation that have been restored also look really, really nice. Areas that were used and permitted for laydown are now naturalized with shrubs and grasses. One item that came up recently was that there is drainage that runs down Fitch Court and will probably continue to run down Fitch Court, and that does run onto the right-of-way. So the crews have been making sure that any rills have stone in it, stone large enough to not wash into a wetland, for example, adjacent to the Mill River. So like 3-inch stone. And I think, you know, the maintenance going forward is pretty modest for National Grid. They don't own the property, it's the MBTA's, but really it won't often get used. There's not much to do there. Only if something ever goes wrong would they be out there. So otherwise, my understanding is the town is working to obtain the rights to finalize an agreement with the MBTA to ultimately have a bike path in this location. But that I obviously don't know the status of, but I think that everything is looking pretty stable, and I'm certainly happy to answer any questions I could for you.
Is there anything in writing somewhere that protects this land that they're using to make this path, to make sure it stays as a path and it doesn't become something else?
Well, I would say yes. So the MBTA is the landowner, and National Grid, New England Power Company, has a legal easement over the right-of-way that allows them to have the electric transmission line under it, as well as access over it via the construction of this road. So that agreement goes on effectively in perpetuity. It doesn't prevent, to my knowledge, other uses like a bike path, but it would prevent it from, for example, being otherwise developed or used for some other purpose if there was one.
Okay, thank you.
Just if it's okay, I'll share a picture.
Yes, please do.
Just a representative photo. We submitted a handful, but this shows the state of the right-of-way, the paved surface. You can see the areas that had previously been just stone, added loam and seed, and we monitored that to make sure it all took pretty well. These pictures are 5 or 6 weeks ago, so it's actually, some of this grass now is knee or thigh high. But just some examples of and this is the BBW adjacent to the big Mill River complex, and this goes down a bit of a slope, but all the areas look pretty stable like this and in decent shape. You know, going back a while ago, these are the photos from around the substation. So this area was effectively a large dirt yard, and it's been, you know, it was seeded. There's gray dogwood growing in here, and it's all pretty stable. Really only a small piece of this is in buffer zone, but it is jurisdictional area for sure. And you know, a lot of what it looks like is like nothing, right? Because all of it's in the roadway. So really what we show you are areas of laydown or a unique feature like the right-of-way. Most of it looks like this, you know, a patched trench in a road. At this point, much of that has actually been all repaved. So now you can't notice its installation anywhere. You will see, of course, manholes. There's manholes about every 1,500 feet over the 3.5 or so miles that it goes through town.
Who's in charge of repaving the roads? Well, like Montrose. Haven't been down that
All of the repaving that's been done or is yet to be done is all done by National Grid contractors. Salem Street, of course, is a DOT jurisdictional road, so we work with them there, but it's all done, all paid for by National Grid.
but when's it gonna get done?
Right now, I think 50 or 60% of it's done. I understand the rest would certainly be done. And none of that really, or very little of that is anywhere near a wetland, but it would all be done within the next few months. The schedule is dictated by the town and the MassDOT and police detail availability.
Any
So
other
I'll-
questions?
Well, I was gonna say, I'll just refresh everyone's memory. This came before us a couple months ago, but Bill Renault had asked if they could add some grass, loam and seed on the sides. There was a little bit of erosion and a little bit of this, that, and the other thing. So I believe that Bill is now happy. He's been back out. I've been out to the site. And we have all the pictures. I just didn't, I didn't know if you guys remembered the last time we talked about this. There were just a few little items to try to fix up. And at this point, I think it's been fixed up. So I don't have anything else that we are requesting or waiting on.
Okay. All right, so would somebody like to make a motion to
Make a
issue
motion.
a certificate of compliance?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor. Haley,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes,
and I also vote yes.
Appreciate all your help over the years. It's been the longest project in my career, so I really appreciate your help and Elaine's as well. I speak with Elaine almost every day for our ongoing work in Winchester, so I still get to see her. But
so when is the trail gonna open?
that's really up to the town.
Right.
It's, we're done, and anything that wants to happen now absolutely can go forward. I will say that the process to get an easement agreement with the MBTA is very challenging. They're very much in support of bike paths, but all of the things, the ways they get involved in the process of like design approval and contracts for timing and maintenance cost is, it takes a team of people months to do it. It took National Grid over a year, and I don't know if the price they paid is public, but it's a 7-figure cost to have this easement. So it's crazy, but it really wouldn't take too long in terms of hurdles to move forward. Should there be a champion, I think at the town level to do it. I know World Tech Engineering had worked on this years ago and provided designs to the town of Wakefield and feasibility study, things like that. We tried to follow the design guidelines in that feasibility study back in 2015 and 16 when we were engineering all of this, so that at least could be used as a bike path. But it's a process.
Yeah.
Thank
So,
you.
well,
All right,
thank you all
thank you,
again. Have a
Dave.
great night.
You too.
Take care.
Okay, Rebecca. Other business.
Okay, let's do 200 Quantapowhat Parkway. I think I sent you guys an email on 7/27 at 1:22 PM, if you guys want to refresh your memory. I think they're just looking for you guys to approve. I think they swapped out, they did some changes to the numbers of what species they were going to plant. So they provided that table to you guys if you want to look it over. And they're just looking for you guys to just say that you're okay with it.
And he confirmed that all of the plantings in the buffer zone were native, right?
That's right, yes.
Yeah.
And did you look at it, or did Elaine look at it, Rebecca?
Did we look at the species or did we look at the change in numbers? Well, actually, I looked at both, yes. Yeah, I mean, they're changing, so for instance, instead of 90 black choke cherries, they're proposing 21. And however, they're bumping up other ones. So instead of 15 buttonbush, they're bumping up to 72. So they made the point that all of their total number will remain the same. They just have adjusted, which probably makes sense based on site conditions, light, and they, you know, looked at it in greater detail to see what would thrive in those circumstances. It's up to you guys. I don't see, I mean, I think we're lucky to get the list because a lot of times they make field decisions on the fly and you get it at the very end. So I thought this was kind of cool. It's all on there if you want to look at the table. You know, I'm a little bummed that they didn't have the milkweeds. I don't know why, but they bumped up swamp aster. I mean, they're both native and they're, you know, pollinator type plantings. So it's just an adjustment of which the specific species that they're going to
And
plant.
why is the milkweed better, do you think?
Oh, I don't know the answer to that. I just feel like I like
Well,
the
milk-
variety.
Milkweed is like primary source for monarch butterflies.
Yep.
Could we send back to them and request that they add some of that then?
But there's all kinds of pollinators on this list.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very extensive.
So I don't know if you guys read the letter that went with it, but they had written that the reason for the adjustments is consideration of site-specific planting conditions that arise during the design process. Examples of these conditions are sun exposure, soil moisture, screening requirements. So they made some adjustments. I mean, to be honest with you, I think that sounds like the right thing to do.
Yeah,
It's better than trying to shove something in there that isn't going to be successful. So it sounds like someone took a really close look at this.
right.
And said, "Well, based on what we know now, it's unlikely this will thrive. Why don't we substitute something that we know will work? That way they
Yeah,
don't
no,
waste money and
agreed.
time and everything else. I think it actually sounds like a pretty good idea.
Yeah, definitely put some thought into these plantings.
Mhm.
So what are they looking for from us, or is this just a courtesy?
Well, I think that they would be looking for me to be able to write to them tomorrow or Thursday and say the commission reviewed your adjustments and they're happy with them. So, if you guys can,
We
want
can,
to take a vote on
we
it?
can,
and
yeah,
say
we certainly
you're
can.
happy with this, then that's what I can write to them.
Would somebody like to make a motion to vote on the approval of the submitted vegetation plan for 200 Corner Power Parkway?
I'll make that motion.
Second. Anybody?
I'll second.
Second, yes, well, yeah.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Haley,
Yes.
Jimmy,
Yep,
Paul,
Yes,
Yes.
Teresa, and I also vote yes.
Great. I will send them an email on Thursday. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Could we do the tree removal next?
84 Preston?
Yes, please.
Yes.
All right, I'll just take this. So if you guys remember, 84 Preston was that one lot that had one house, and then they were gonna knock that down and subdivide it. They came for an RDA for the one that was further away from the stream. They intend on submitting a notice of intent for the one that's closer. So you guys get to do the determination, did a negative determination for the one that's further away. I think the property line was around 80 feet away from the edge of the stream, if I recall. So I think it's probably the contractors. I'm not sure if it's the owners or not, to be honest with you, but they came in to talk to me and they said, we have some trees that we would like to take down, but they span across, because we're working on the outside, I'll just call it that for lack of a better term, but outside lot. And while there's two, I think it was 2 or 3 that they wanted to take down on the other lot. He said, could we do that at the same time? So I had Elaine go out and look at them. She took pictures. They are healthy trees. So they came back in and I said, okay, because they were organizing to have all of that work sort of done at the same time. So I made an executive decision to allow them to take down the healthy trees. But what I told them was we would be addressing this when they take care of the notice of intent. So we have the photos. I gave them the tree policy. They intend on doing landscaping when they come back when they submit their notice of intent and come back for the order of conditions. So I'm telling you guys that I allowed them to take those I can't remember if it's 1 or 2 on the outside lot and 1 or 2 on the inside lot. Elaine, we have pictures, we have documentation, we know where they were. But I thought it didn't make sense to have them come back, clear one lot of a couple of trees and then come back and have to remobilize and do the other one. Since they were there, I thought that was fair. So like I said, I'm saying it now. So not only do you guys know, but also as a reminder that when that notice of intent comes forward, we will be addressing the removal of the tree and working that into they'll have to adhere to the tree policy because they were perfectly healthy trees. So however you guys want to work that into the order of conditions when the time comes. I think there was only 1 on that lot.
Rebecca, I'm sorry, I'm confused. Why is it that they wanted to remove the trees now?
All right, so they have 1 lot that they subdivided, and the one that's furthest from the wetland, from the intermittent stream bank. It's a stream bank is the closest resource area. So the lot that is the edge of their property line is like around 80 feet from the bank. They came forward with a request for determination of applicability for that lot to knock down what is existing and to put up, I think they're going to put up a duplex. I can't remember what they're going to put up. Regardless, so when they came in, I said, the furthest lot can be done under an RDA, but the closer lot, when they do that site work, has to go under a notice of intent because it will be less than 80 feet. So, some of the building might be 50 feet away. So anyway, it's closer. So they're going to come for a notice of intent for that lot. So the owner owns both of them, or the contractor's working on both of them. So they have a tree removal person for the RDA lot.
I see. It's gonna be out there doing that. I got you.
They're already gonna take down those trees. And like I said, we have documentation of where they are and what they are, what they look like. So I said it was okay, because to me, I was like, okay, they're coming for a notice of intent anyway. We'll just hold this and revisit it at the time and tackle it there. So tackle it meaning require replacement, and then whatever they do for landscaping, because he also mentioned that they were going to do landscaping. I mentioned to him that it would have to be native because it's within 100 feet. So he's going to meet the tree policy. It's just going to be done during the NOI process as opposed to its separate process now. I thought that made sense.
Yeah, that sounds fine.
And there was how many 2 trees?
So I think there was a total of 3. And I can't remember if it was 2 on the closest lot, 1 on the further lot, or vice versa. I think it's vice versa. I think there were 2 further away, and there was only 1 live tree that was within, whether it be the 25-foot, Elaine knows for sure, area. But like I said, again, I thought we could tackle that during the notice of intent application.
All right, so these trees are on what will be the NOI lot.
One of them is.
Okay, just 1. Okay.
Or it might be 2. 1 or 2 is, and the other 1 or 2, I can look it up. I can
All
give
right,
you
and the reason they wanted to take these particular trees was what?
for their
They
project.
don't like them.
They're in the way
I
of,
mean, I don't know if they hang over or something that they're not going to want to have it hang over. You know how it goes. I don't know.
Yeah.
Safety. It's always
Yeah.
safe. So
yeah, I'm looking at the pictures and looks like it's the same tree in the pictures. Looks like 2 pictures actually like taped together to form 1 or
is that
something.
from Elaine?
Yeah. From
Like,
Elaine.
that's from Elaine?
Yeah.
Yeah, Elaine sent them, yeah.
Yeah, she's been out there.
Yeah,
I mean,
Okay.
she basically just said they're healthy trees, so they'll just have to replace her linear foot.
okay,
And even if they replace all of it closer to the wetland, I mean, I think that's a bonus.
Yeah.
I don't know that they'll do that, but I'm just saying.
we know the approximate size of these trees?
Yep. Elaine
Okay.
has, she's been out.
Okay. All right,
Okay, so I just wanted to let you guys know and clear that up.
okay, what would you like to cover next? Native,
Well, I guess that's up to you guys,
native plant policy?
whether or not you guys want to dive into that. So we started to do it last time. I was told I put too many things on the agenda.
Yeah, that was correct.
It's not much better to this time either.
I would agree with that. That's why I like talking about the amended standard conditions, the first thing next meeting.
So, I mean, to be honest with you, I feel like it is a little inefficient to start from scratch right now and to start going through these documents. But I keep putting them on there because I would like them to get done. So if we can circulate some comments and edits throughout the next 2 weeks, by the time the next meeting comes, we can have more of a final version that you guys can then not take up a lot of time necessarily during the Zoom, and just maybe a comment or two if there was something left outstanding, and then vote on them right away. I would think that's a better method, but it's up to you guys how you want to.
We did provide some comments for the standard conditions, right?
I think you gave me one or two.
Yeah. And then there was discussion about having some conditions for single family lots versus,
Separating them out, commercial.
Yeah.
That's a little tricky, but
it is.
Why do we have to do that? Why don't we just leave it like it is? If
Just a suggestion.
Yeah, we
Something
don't have to do it.
they don't apply, they don't, they don't
Yeah.
apply.
And then, well, the other thing was, I think I mentioned that some towns have like little check mark boxes
Yeah,
that you could, you will end up having to each time though check, all right, I'd like to check 16, 17, 18, 19, you would have to do that.
yeah,
That's
right.
what you wanted to. Or I think a lot of what you have right now is language that says if applicable.
Mhm.
I just think there's a lot of leftovers and carryovers that might not be necessary anymore. Some of,
Did you highlight or notate any of those? I don't remember.
oh, that would have been helpful,
No,
wouldn't it?
I gotta tell you, I'll be frank with you. I was going to do that and mark some for resident, single family residences, and I have not done that. So I agree with you. I think it's ridiculously long and no one, I'm sure, I mean, people's eyes glass over. I don't know. It's like, I can't read this anymore. So again, I think it makes sense for us to do a good hard look at it, and I just don't think doing it together, again, at 8.
I don't think we need to, I
And
don't really think we need to separate them. I mean, now we got 2 documents to track.
no, in one document, just say this is for residential, wait, what applies, that's all. No, one document, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we've got what,
When you
64?
fill out any form, if it doesn't apply, you just don't, just like they do on their forms for us, when they fill them out, they don't check every box off. They just.
You
check
wouldn't
off-
do well in my law firm, Jim.
Well, we try to use less. I know you get paid by the word, so we try to.
That's why he's an engineer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that, I again, and it's.
Reinventing the wheel.
That's probably a compliment for you. It's fine. It's a compliment for you, Jim, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Again, I'm sorry, that's just my opinion.
I think we need to go. I have one that I have concern about is that 50 or 100-foot offset, or I think that's way too much.
Do you know which number that we can pull it
I
up?
don't remember what I went through them.
I
with
think you
quite a
said
lot of them.
60 in the email.
I mean, let's see. Number 40, I had a question mark, and that talks about 100-foot. That's pesticides within 100 feet.
I'd like to go through them again anyways, right?
Is that the one, Jim?
From the beginning. Just get a list and refresh my mind too, because some of the stuff is so old. It doesn't, you're right, it doesn't apply.
I had previously sent you
Yeah,
the standard list. Would you,
Yeah.
is it helpful if I just resend it maybe on Thursday?
yeah.
And then if you guys either, what we can do is I'll just track all the changes and then as people give it to me, I'll make changes and or address comments and then send it back out to you guys and we can go back and forth. It's just, it goes back and forth.
Yeah, I know.
That would require you guys actually replying back to me with stuff.
So does the current one go up to 64?
69, doesn't it?
I've got a hard copy here that I printed. I don't know when.
I got up to 64 on this one from the
Yeah.
standard conditions that we
That's what I'm
got
seeing
recently.
also.
I'm just opening the one that I have is.
Yes, the current one is up to 64.
Okay.
Yep, that's what I have as well. 64 being the list of perpetuals.
Hey, what's the 38R Walton Street? Is that something we're doing tonight too?
We already did it.
You
Took
did that.
care of that one.
Okay.
Yeah, we took that early.
Rebecca, is there a reason number 52 is highlighted in red, or is that just an
It's not
accident
my
there?
version, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, 51, 52, 54, 5, 7, 8, and 60 were all in red on mine.
So
Oh,
if you,
I
if
just
you
see
could send that
52.
again, as you said, Rebecca, that'd be great.
I'll do that. That's interesting. They're not red on mine, but that could just be a weird formatting, something or other. When I send them out, there's no red on them. I mean, all right, so like, because you just brought my attention to number 51, no unsuitable material of any kind, stumps, fruit, trash, debris may be buried, placed, or dispersed on the property. You guys still want that in there?
Well, they, by law,
Yeah.
they shouldn't be doing it, but,
Or concrete trucks and other vehicles should not be washed out in any washed out in the resource area or within 50 feet of any resource area or into any stormwater drain system. I mean,
Yeah,
so many of our things
we
are,
need-
that's
we
not
need
applicable.
that.
We added that one.
You need that one because we just dump it wherever they want.
Lots of erosion control ones.
I think my comment was about the banding, you know, the protecting of trees with the
Yeah,
2x4s, and there are better methods.
That
Yeah,
is,
now it does look good. I saw some trees that
They use
Okay.
corrugated pipe now, plastic corrugated pipe,
yeah,
you know,
Wait,
either
did you
completely
send us a
encapsulate.
picture?
Yeah, I sent you pictures.
Yeah.
So,
I see, I
again,
see
if
it around
you
the
want-
lake all the time. Well,
If
doing
you
it-
want to go through it, do you want, I mean, you sent it last on June 28th, Rebecca? So we could pull it up on the screen so everyone could see it instead of looking at different versions. Would that be helpful if we're doing this now? I'm just gonna tell you, I'm not at my peak at 9 o'clock because I've been up since 4:30. I'm
Yeah,
not at my peak. I'm not at my
I-
peak.
then
Yeah,
let's
I
not,
agree.
Well, stop getting up at 4:30.
No, I mean, I agree. I don't really want to do it right now either, but I just want it to get done. And
No, and your concern is a good one, Rebecca.
all right,
Yeah.
so why don't you guys, I'll resend it. I'll resend the native plant policy. We can take care, the 25 no disturb was just putting something down on paper so that we can upload to the website that just says, this is what it looks like. We don't have to tackle that right now. We can take care of the other two right now being, within the
you
next
know
few.
what, I do want to, I'm thinking about the wording for that 25 no disturb. I'm thinking that we shouldn't have the no disturb on there. We need to do it because people, what's happening is that they're looking at the 25 as the limit, right? But it really isn't, because we can go out to 100 feet and have no disturb. If we decided that it needed more protection, we could say, no, this area has to have a 35-foot no disturb zone.
You're actually right.
Yeah,
You
we
could
could
put
say
it-
minimum.
Yeah, minimum 25-foot minimum no disturb zone.
Or you could not even put anything like that and just say the commission's policy is to maintain a vegetated buffer along the resource area to the extent of which will be decided during a hearing or something to that
Mhm.
effect.
We don't want to be arbitrary, though.
I agree. However, sometimes it does feel arbitrary even with a number.
It's true.
Yeah.
Or we could clarify the language, 25 is a rule of thumb, but in some situations, it could be more or less, depending on the situation.
Well, you know, I was looking at the buffer zone guidebook, MACC, and they've got some recommendations in there too for setbacks. But it
Another
depends
really-
on what,
I was gonna say, another really good thing to do is there are lots of towns, probably more towns than not, that have this. And you can browse different towns, and
Do they
see-
have it as part of their bylaw or as a policy, Rebecca?
So they have it as a bylaw,
Right,
but
we-
your policy can have similar verbiage.
Yeah.
Because it's
okay,
just,
I've been thinking about this too, is we don't want that to be a bylaw, because if it's a bylaw, then the Board of Appeals can waive it. Because it then becomes a town bylaw. Whereas if we talk about it from I checked this out with Tom Mullins. He gave me I can read you what he wrote to me. But so if it goes as a bylaw, now the town can control it and the Board of Appeals can control it. They can waive it, just like they wanted to do on this North Ave. But if it stays the way it is, then we always have, it's a state, it's part of our regulation. So we don't have to, we can regulate it with using it as, well, that's how we regulate it, it's basically.
but it's a policy.
then-
though. I don't, it has no, because the
It has,
policy.
it has
Jim,
no, I know, but when we say it's a policy, then everyone says, okay, this is at 25 feet. And we may decide, well, no, it shouldn't be 25 feet, it should be 30 feet here. And even
No,
if you,
I agree with 100%.
if you look in the guidebook for buffer zones, that's what they do. For certain areas, they make them different setbacks.
Yeah,
So
so that's why you
then-
would say a 25-foot minimum,
Our-
because then that
our-
allows us to go above that.
Our council here could come up with appropriate language to cover us.
Yeah. Rebecca's can come up with some wording, she's good.
well, let me just say that, a policy, the way I look at it and the way that I try to explain it to people when they ask me is that the policy is just sort of like a guideline that we use, that if you use it, if you adhere to the policy as a general rule of thumb, you're likely going to meet the requirements of the state regulations. That's how I interpret a policy. So
Yeah.
it isn't a hard and fast, it's something for you to go by, to do your planning, to use, because otherwise you have no idea what's happening. But regardless of that, you use the state regulations, and Jim, similar to what you're saying is, you have to determine within that buffer zone whether or not whatever is proposed, which can include clearing of vegetation, if that clearing of vegetation, wherever it might be, 0 feet, 50 feet, doesn't matter, where in your jurisdiction, you determine if that activity, vegetation clearing, for instance, is going to result in a impact to the BVW that has not been identified, quantified, etc. That's, you do that under the state regs.
Yeah.
The no disturb is sort of the way we're using it as a policy is just
Yeah.
it just helps people understand that most likely if you propose something within that area under the state regulations, it very well could result in a negative impact that you guys would then require replication or otherwise.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
It does. I just, that word bothers me, policy. I think we need to just change the wording.
Guideline?
I think
With
policy
David,
makes it
soft,
sound more
frankly.
flexible.
Guideline would imply more flexibility, so I think that's, because that's what happens. They get stuck on that 25 feet, and how do you justify it, They know right off the bat that it might be 100 feet and it might be 5 feet.
It
Then they
would be
can
hard
decide.
to say, though, that activities at 75 feet away would result in a negative impact to the wetland.
Well,
Now,
Okay, if
there
you
could be-
had an uncertified vernal pool that was within the 100 feet, you might think differently about it.
I mean, you could have
I think-
blasting within 50, that could certainly cause alterations where, if it was in 25 feet, your likelihood goes up significantly.
All of which you could regulate as, even if it is at 100 feet, if you believe that there's a connection that you can demonstrate that has a negative impact, that's what the state regs allow you to do. You just,
Right.
that becomes your burden to demonstrate that it is more likely than not going to
Right.
happen.
That's right. And we had that situation up at the school with wetland number 2. That was an uncertified vernal pool.
We shouldn't
Yeah.
talk about that right now.
Huh?
We shouldn't talk about that right now.
I didn't hear you.
We shouldn't talk about anything specific.
Oh. What? That's just the. Okay,
In situations where sometimes there is uncertified areas,
I'm just using it as an example.
I know.
Just had something like that.
So why don't we do this? I mean, everybody can pick a town, go that has a bylaw or something. Check it out, circulate what you like, what you don't like. I like this language, I don't like this language, and we'll collect them all and put it together.
Didn't we already do this?
What, are we talking about a new document for the conditions then? Is that what you're suggesting?
So there's a few things. Yes, a new list of standard conditions of which we can go through and edit, and that's one. But we were talking about a no disturb policy that I had, it's right now, it just a statement that there is one. I don't actually see anything ever written about one. Like, it doesn't have any, there's no document that we have uploaded to the website so that people could refer to it. It's just a statement. And I just think it's beneficial to have more of a more language and narrative going with it so that people understand
Right.
why it's so
Something should have
important.
an intent. You should listen in what the intent is of what you're trying to do. in something.
Absolutely. Similar to, I think we should always have a finding section in our order of conditions.
Right, the last version you sent has that, right?
I think we should do that all the time. And I also think like it would be great, within that narrative under the findings, you find this significant. And for instance, if someone proposes mitigation measures to balance out some of the work that they're doing, so that in the future, if someone ever looks back and says, there's someone's proposing something within that mitigation area, well, that was used as compensation for something else, maybe we should consider acknowledging that and addressing that. Does that make sense? So as things don't, because I find that things are cumulative and they compound, so it's a one-way street. So these projects, single family house lots or otherwise, when they have a history attached to them, it really only goes, less vegetation, more impervious, more development, it never shrinks the other way. So when you get to a project that's been, or a lot that's been around for a really long time, it could have been that you allowed something close, let's say closer to a wetland than you typically do, because they offer some type of compensation that you were willing to have, say this balances, maybe they're going to restore an area in the back as compensation for having a garage close to the wetland on the side, right? But 12 years later, there's a new homeowner and they want to take all the trees down and put a pool where you might not know that connection. And that's how you end up long-term, resulting in less and less and less protected spaces or vegetated spaces or all these things. So if you put in your findings that part of the review and part of your approval included this conversation about this compensation, one for the other or whatever, negotiating this, that, and the other thing, it can then become part of the conversation in the future when and if things need to change. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What happens if the tree died in the meantime?
They adhere to your tree policy.
They've got to come back and tell us that it died and that they want to take it down, Jimmy.
I mean, I don't want to be too excessive here. I'm just saying it's almost like I mean, I do that anyway. Sometimes I will go back and look at if they already have,
Yeah, no.
I go read that old file. And sometimes I even go read the minutes to find out what was discussed, to decide whether or not, when you guys had that approval, what were you talking about? What was valuable to you at the time? What was offered to you and what did you guys expect?
See the value in it.
But I don't always have the minutes, and these things go back tons of time. So if we had a finding that kind of maybe illuminated some of this, it just might be easier in the future.
A question for my information, lacking a lot of the history. Do we have a system whereby if someone comes in for the new application, a new notice of intent on a particular property, do older ones on that property or adjacent properties pop up?
No, I look for the address every time.
Okay, so we don't have anything automated. The town doesn't
No.
have anything automated.
No, you know, I excuse me, I looked into at one point in time having, excuse me, a map of Wakefield that showed where each filing was and a corresponding number. I don't know if you guys remember this from ages and ages ago. And I think that would be so valuable. I just don't have I can't do it. I just don't have enough time to get all the, even to find somebody to do it for me. It's just too much work. I don't have enough time on.
No, that's a serious mapping exercise. You're right.
And it would be
I just
amazing.
wondered if the town had a database that would track these kinds of things by property identifiers or anything.
Okay, so I have a spreadsheet that is every notice of intent filed. We have it on ongoing list. So I add every new one we get, I add on to it. So when we get something that, at this stage of the game, I swear to God, I practically remember half of them. But when we get to something, I will go into that spreadsheet and I will search the address. Now addresses change. So sometimes I search different homeowners, and sometimes I just ask Jimmy or Elaine if they remember. So, and then depending on what year it was, like for instance, Bay State Road that came in for a minor, they had 2 previous orders, and John had indicated, and that's why I jumped in. He thought they were still ongoing. So then I look in the list, I get a number, and for me, I have to go next door to the building next door because they have all of our filings half of them. The first half of filings were up to 620 something or other now, 620 something. The first 350, 0 to 350, they're in the building next door. So then I run next door and go get the old filing and bring it back. And I try to scan them now so that I can have them electronically and I don't have to run to the building, but it just depends on whether or not I've looked it up yet. And I can't scan, I just don't have the time, but I don't scan the big plans. I just don't have time to do it.
Yeah.
So, yes, so the
And
answer.
we don't have any requirements for e-submittals of those kinds of things. Yeah.
No, we did get an e-submittal, and I was thinking that if we had e-submittals, because they have Latin, longitude and whatnot, it might be easy to create that map off of that. Which would all be awesome. We had one e-filing that I gave them the conditions through the DEP system, and I totally messed it up, but I'm sure it'll get better. I just did it twice. It's not a big deal. Their conditions were listed, all 60 of them were listed twice. But nonetheless, I mean, I would love to streamline these things and it would be extremely beneficial. It's just one more time component I don't have, but
time and money, both too. Yes, understood. Okay, thanks.
We could probably get.
Don't have the history, so I didn't know where we stood.
Yeah.
Now I do.
And I do have a list also of like RDAs and stuff, and I also search that. So. And then sometimes I look at if it's a subdivision, I'll pull up the old subdivision plan and see what it says, which is how sometimes we find old wetland lines, because they were on old plans. So you look at the plans from the 60s and the 70s, and they have not only the road layout, but they do have streams or swamps, wetlands and whatnot. They are indicated on some of those. So that's a lot of times how I find out the history as well.
Okay.
I just sent you guys a couple of examples of no disturb zone policies. And Oxford has some very clean language that basically leaves it up to the discretion of the commission. You can open it up and see what it says, but.
Or you can send it around.
I sent them both. I sent it to Oxford, I sent to Westford.
Oh,
But
cool.
like the Oxford, the last statement, the commission may require larger no disturb or no build zones when it is deemed necessary to protect the values and functions of the wetland resource areas and to allow the continuity of natural conditions. So adding that statement to whatever we decide upon, leaves it up to our discretion. This Oxford one, we may not agree with the distances they've got, but it's very clean, concise, and simple. The Western one's a little more complicated.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen that one.
Yeah.
thorough, it's very thorough. Yeah, and you guys can just pick pieces that work for you and we just put them all together.
Yeah, I mean, I love that last paragraph on the Oxford one. Sums up everything we talked about.
Okay. Well, then we should use it. Do you guys have the native plant policy that was circulated or that was last time or 2 times ago? I'll
There
look it
was
up.
there was a couple of them, wasn't there?
No, it was, I remember Ipswich was one of them that I looked at. I can't remember the others. All right, well, we'll put it all together again and see what we come up with.
Yeah.
Because next time you have to do an order of conditions. So you have, unless we get something new in, you have 1 order of conditions to, I think also it was mentioned to me that the next meeting that you guys were hoping to have an overall presentation of what the high school project will be, even though it hasn't been filed yet. So they've agreed to do that.
They have one saved down. I watched it a couple of months ago.
Well, they've agreed to come in and give you guys an overall, just a general understanding of what the project will be when they file the NOI.
That's gonna be at the next meeting?
Yeah, unless you guys feel like that's
So
not,
at least 2 of us won't be there.
okay. Would you guys like me to ask them to do in September?
Well, why are we asking for that?
That their email to me indicated that you guys had asked for that. Now, I don't know if during the ORAD and RAD process, someone had mentioned it would be great to have a presentation, so, so that everyone understood the whole big picture. Maybe that was mentioned and they're following up on it. They're pretty responsive.
Yeah,
If you guys feel that September is a better time, I can ask them that.
I'm pretty sure it's saved down. There's a, because I watched it. I just don't remember where I saw it.
Do they have an idea of when they'd be wanting to file the NOI?
I'm sure they probably do. I don't know what it is, but I can ask them. If September starts to encroach, maybe they'll just skip the overall presentation altogether. I don't know.
I think from my perspective, September would be better. I don't know about other folks.
Okay.
You agreed.
Well, it doesn't hurt to ask. Why don't I just ask them?
Okay,
But is it even necessary?
Are you saying, is it necessary I ask them, or is it necessary for a presentation?
For them to
You have
do
a
it.
presentation, since they're gonna be coming before us anyways.
I think from what I read in the email, I think they're meaning a request by someone.
It's kind of
Right,
an
but
odd
I think Bob is
request.
saying we no longer request it, Rebecca.
Or whoever requested it's not here. I mean, it's kind of an odd request, right? I mean,
Because they'll present it when they submit the NOI is the point, right?
yeah, we wouldn't be making suggestions to them, or I don't know. It doesn't sound like.
yeah, I remember when
Do
we
they
did
want to
the
just,
sidewalk with them that, my only question was, where are you putting the building? They
Right where the
explained-
track is.
Pardon? Yeah,
Right,
Right
and
where
where
the
the
track
track
is.
is, right?
exactly.
And nothing's happening where the baseball field is. That whole side, nothing's happening over there.
Hold on. My email says the Conservation Commission requested that SMMA present an overview of the entire project to familiarize the commission.
It must have
before
been that
the
Peter. That Peter probably did it.
filing.
Peter or Ken?
Or Ken, doing that sidewalk.
Oh, Jimmy, and he forgot.
So, do you want me to write back that you no longer feel is necessary? It can be covered during the notice of intent process, or
Yeah,
would
Yes,
you?
because we don't want to inconvenience them. We
Yeah.
reconsider this request, and since they'll be doing it when they submit the NOI, that should be sufficient.
I
They
mean,
should
that's
be
the
happy.
appropriate way to handle it.
or could they send us just something over email, some plans or whatever they have at the moment?
Judy, do you remember where there was a presentation that was done and saved electronically? Do you know where it is?
I can find it tomorrow. I'll
Because
find
it's out there. I watched it.
Yeah, no, it is out there. I'll find it.
Okay. You have one less thing at your next meeting. Oh yeah, that's what we were saying. So I will at least schedule at 7 o'clock the final review and vote on an updated and edited standard conditions. So that everything subsequent to that will be using that.
Hey, a lot of pressure to get it done. I won't be here. Good luck.
Well, we already have your comments, Bob.
But they don't have computers where you're going?
I'm gonna be 6 hours difference.
In
and,
Hawaii, never. They don't, no computers in Hawaii. That's
I-
right.
They're not allowed.
I've been ordered, if I bring my computer, the trip's off.
I like it.
And I'll be 6 hours the other way. That's my problem.
All right, so you guys just get me your comments and notes and suggestions beforehand, and I'll make sure they get incorporated and sent around.
One question. I noticed, I think it was condition 31 is all about stormwater protection plan and NPDES. Do those apply to single family residences as well? Do they apply to the contractor?
The application notifications. Wait, what number?
31.
I thought it was
32.
31.
32, sorry.
Commencement.
It has in there.
31 is prior to commencement on the version I have at least.
I don't think that's. very good.
NPDES, notice of intent, stormwater prevention, pollution prevention plan, and
That's not.
Yeah, no, that is not,
that is not a single family thing.
no.
Okay. I mean,
Because single families
I've
aren't,
never
don't-
encountered it for those kinds of things. I mean, I've run into it plenty of times in my professional life, but
I mean, not for nothing. So these. That's one of those things that. I don't know if it's necessary to be in the order. Because,
Do it anyways.
say again?
You have to do it anyways.
Yeah, and all I have to do is send an email that says, hey, can you send me the final, and I get it. You know what I mean? And I mean, how many SWIP plans have you guys reviewed?
Right.
How many NIPT's general permits have you guys reviewed? So we're asking for things that I think, although I understand. And it could be valuable in a certain circumstance, as a general. Just
Yeah.
seems extra fluff.
yeah, I mean, I would agree with you that it makes sense to thin this kind of stuff down.
And while we're there, number 36 references a tree policy, but it doesn't reference our current tree policy.
Seems like it needs to be updated.
Yep.
Yeah, and combined, like we could have one condition that maybe incorporates the content of 2 or 3, you know what I mean? That, especially the erosion control ones. I mean, I think originally that was like this big mitigating measure that we had to ensure that everyone was doing. And now everybody just does it all the time anyway, because they're so
That's
used
true.
to it. Say again?
That's true, Rebecca, because you know that those things got added incrementally as we ran across problems. We tried to solve it. A lot of the stuff that was in there, everyone's already trained on that stuff, so they know, they up to date on. So we don't need to repeat some of that stuff.
Would it be cheating to ask Elaine to send us Winchester standard order?
No.
You can find some of these online, you know, if
Yeah.
you browse around, you can look at other town stuff.
Wait a minute, we do a better job than Winchester. We don't need to follow them.
Winchester has pretty high standards. I don't know.
You know, not for nothing, everybody reads everybody else's stuff and pulls
Right.
stuff that I've seen
I
some of
know,
our
I know.
language in other places, so everyone shares everything.
I've seen some of our conditions verbatim in other towns.
Yeah, me
'Cause we
too.
took them from them.
Maybe. Now we've lost track, we thought it was ours.
All right, so 36 needs to be revised.
And back to what Paul was saying about number 32, I mean, that seems more reasonable to add that as a specific condition for, I mean, that is only applicable for really big projects.
What I was
Well,
thinking too.
It's anything over 3 houses, right?
Well, stormwater, but not like the NIPSE's construction general permit. What is that? And I don't remember off the top of my head, so don't quote me, but I think it's something like an acre of disturbance, right? You guys are not seeing that very often. And even if you are, it's not new disturbance.
Yeah.
It's redevelopment. So, I mean, because that's more applicable once in a blue moon, maybe it shouldn't be a part of a standard.
Like I say, it's either put an X on it or leave it blank. So I mean, it doesn't matter to me. I mean, if it takes up less paper, I guess that's a good thing.
And I think if you have
Just
less
take it out and
conditions,
just add it back if you need it.
yeah,
I
you would
think
add that
it's
on
I
specific
think-
projects.
I think it's just overwhelming to look. I mean, if you just picture yourself the first time you see this thing, and it's like, 69 conditions to it, you say, holy mackerel, what am I in for?
Yeah.
Well, some people never get to see their orders.
Some people never read their
What?
order.
Yeah.
What happened to 1 through 20, by the way? We start at 21.
That's
Those are the DEP standards.
Yeah,
I think.
standard DEPs.
Oh, okay.
They're on the form. They're included already on the DEP form that we issue.
Told us we only needed 22, but we felt we needed 69.
I mean, some of them I like. Some are just, it's just too much.
Yep. Okay, I'll look at it and come back with thoughts before I go away.
Yeah, or like number 39, I think we can just delete it.
What's it say?
Prior to any soil disturbance, erosion control barrier shall be placed between the projects and wetland area. I think that's already included in the like DEP erosion control standard, right? Anyway, we'll go through it. There's just too many.
Rebecca, one request, please definitely send out our current version, because mine, I'm showing that as number 38, so.
Yeah, Rebecca, you sent one on
Yeah,
June
same here.
28th.
We renumbered them at one point. Must have-
Okay, well, just send me the current one so I can, if I'm
Okay.
marking it up, I'm at least marking up the correct one.
Fair enough.
Thanks. Good.
And we'll just have to do the best we can without Bob and Paul at the next meeting. I hear you guys do pretty good without some of us there at meetings.
Don't forget, you got to bring back a pineapple.
Anything else, Rebecca?
Nope,
That's it.
that's it.
Okay, would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
I make that
I'll move
motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second. Oh,
Have a wonderful time, Bob.
All in favor? Thank you. Haley,
Yes.
Jimmy,
Yes.
Paul,
yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
and I also vote to adjourn. All right. See you
All
in
right.
September.
Bye, guys. Have a good vacation, everyone.
Yes.
Yeah, have-
Thanks. Bye.
Yeah.
Right.